back to My Name Is El-Roi this morning, and we are in episode 5 by Precious Obialor-Ukazim. Alright, so let's continue from where we stopped yesterday. They were also committed in their local church, where they occupy very important leadership positions in certain units of the church, and were making real impacts on the faithfuls, both spiritually and physically. Their unreserved generosity and support for the work of God in their local church and outside their local church endeared them to many people. They had many spiritual children who also comes around on visit to the house once in a while. Some of the spiritual children are married women, unmarried young men and women, married men and widows. The Lord was also using them mightily to solve many problems for people through their effective fervent prayers, and among the things God has done through them is the restoration of many broken homes through the prayers and counseling. The barren conceived their babies after being prayed for by them, and there were many testimonies from people who received their healing and deliverances from spiritual attacks after they were prayed for by this couple. Their home was like a spiritual home to many who sought spiritual growth and spiritual helps. But there were also times when they prayed some Christian folks who never received their answer, nor were their problems solved. Among such people were one of their spiritual daughters who had been very faithful and devoted to God from childhood, who was ripe for marriage, but marriage was not forthcoming, and they had prayed severally, fasted, and did everything they could, but there were still no suitors coming for her. This continued, and they were believing that God was the one who was delaying her marriage for a reason, and that he would soon bring her rightful marriage partner. But this their spiritual daughter clocked 40, yet no man came, and everybody were disappointed with lots of questions running through their minds silently. This situation was giving Mrs. Elizabeth and her husband serious concern, but there was nothing they could do because they've prayed all the prayers they knew how to pray, fasted, and even sowed seeds on her behalf. They inquired several times for God to know why her marriage was being delayed, but God was silent. This silence continued for years until she clocked 50. And everyone, including the lady herself, gave up on marriage, concluding that she would never find a man who would be willing to marry her. This kept troubling Mrs. Elizabeth's heart every day of her life, but she proposed in her heart that since she couldn't get answers from God here on earth, when she gets to heaven, she would ask God why. Why there's so many answered prayers in the lives of the so many people they prayed for and were greatly encouraged by those miracles, there were many other cases they prayed to see the proof of God's miraculous power being made evident, but nothing happened. One of those cases was the case of a very fervent church member whom they prayed for to conceive after many years in marriage. But year after year, her situation remained the same. Yet, God kept saying he has released the babies to her. But in reality, she had not ever missed her period for once, and every pregnancy test she did showed negative. Another scenario was the case of a brother in the faith who died of kidney failure despite all the prayers of faith made by the church faithfuls. But the one that pained Mrs. Elizabeth more was the death of her church choir mistress. That woman had the purest soul she had ever seen and was a very devoted believer of Jesus Christ in words and in action. She slumped while leading the people of God in praises to God and died in the church. And despite all the faith of the whole church put together as they prayed for her restoration, God did not bring her back to life. And this became a topic of mockery among the unbelievers living around the church environment, that their God could not raise their dead choir mistress back to life. God, why? Mrs. Elizabeth cried bitterly, but got no answers. This is not easy, and this is what so many of us are going through. We are at that point of asking God why. Well, let's see what happens next in the next episode. God bless you.